Welcome back to The Practical Woodsman. I'm Rut, the creator and host of The Practical Woodsman. That's right, it's my genius which has brought this all into existence. Scientists and philosophers everywhere, studying my noggin, try to figure out how it works, and harness its powers. I've got with me today Pleasant, the Hillbilly Pickle. How you doing today, Pleasant?
Hey man, I'm doing all right. Hey, what you got there?
This is the topic we're going to be discussing today. This is all about stoves that you can carry out into the backcountry for backpacking, or stoves that you might want to put into your emergency bug out bag. What do you think about that?
Dadgum boy, that's pretty interesting. Why don't you just create a campfire?
Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the difficulties, we'll talk about the pros and cons of all these things and these different styles of stoves. We're going to light them up and talk about the fuel and talk about the pros and cons and campfires. Why don't you just build a campfire? Well, I have some experience in that, and I'm willing to share my insights with you today. And so before we get into all that, we got to do the musical introduction to get us all in the mood. Winkety winkety. So don't go nowhere, but we'll be right here when that ends. Right, Pleasant?
That's right, 10-4, good buddy.
You know, Pleasant, you bring up a good point. Why not just create a campfire instead of packing around one of these daggum backpacking stoves? What's the big deal about just getting a little fire started, cooking your meals and stuff that way?
Right? Well, that's what I'm thinking. I just create a tiny little pickle-sized campfire, Heat up my water, have my coffee in the morning, pour a little bit of moonshine in there.
Okay, well, I want to talk about that. I've done that. Or back in the early days, I said, why do I got to carry anything like a stove if I can just create a fire anywhere I'm going to be? Well, some campfires require more effort than others. For example, if it's been raining for 3 days, getting a little teeny pickle size, like you say there, Pleasant.
Yeah, pickle size. That's what I like. Little pickle size campfire.
Right. Well, even getting a little pickle sized campfire, just out in the wet woods after it's been raining for 3 days might require quite a bit of effort to get going. And when you just want a hot cup of coffee, well, maybe that effort ain't worth it. Another thing is stealth. Not a lot of stealth with a campfire. And you might want to heat up some of those ramen noodles while you're traveling through the woods during some kind of social unrest or emergency, and you don't want to draw a whole lot of attention to yourself. So we're going to talk about primarily two different types of wood stoves today, or portable stoves today. The gas canister stoves, propane, isobutane, those sorts of things. And we're going to talk about these pop can stoves, which maybe you know them as alcohol stoves. I'm stuck calling them pop can stoves because the very first one I had was actually made out of a pop can. Way back, maybe 2006, 2007. You could not get these types of alcohol or pop can stoves on Amazon or the internet or anything like that. I mean, you could get them on the internet. You had to find people who were building them, individuals who were making these things by hand. And so the very first one I got, I think, was made out of a Mountain Dew can or something like that. So I call them pop can stoves still, but they run on rubbing alcohol. Some people use heat, H-E-E-T. I don't like to use heat because heat isn't something that you can just get anywhere. My idea of these things is for an emergency stove, I want to be able to get these supplies or have these supplies in stock. I don't want it to cost me a fortune. You can get a bottle of 91% rubbing alcohol for under $1. Still, even in this economy, you can get it for under $1. You can get it anywhere. You can go down to the gas station. You can go to the pharmacy. You can go to the drugstore. You can go to Walmart. You can go to anywhere, Kroger's, Piggly Wiggly, and you can find this rubbing alcohol. So it's so easily obtained, costs so little, and does the job. So we've got several different types of pop can stoves here. And I've got several different types of stove burners. We should probably turn off, close some doors, dim the lights here. What do you say, Pleasant, so that we can see these things as the fire as it's working?
Well, you don't gotta ask me permission, dadgum.
All right, let me close some doors, get the light dimmed in here so that we can see exactly the flame. I'll tell you, when you're burning with this alcohol, rubbing alcohol, a lot of times the flame is so pure, you can't see it in the daylight. You gotta be real careful with this stuff. You can't see it. It might be lit, there might be a hot flame there, but it's completely invisible in daylight like this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an atmosphere in here to get the light down so that we can see the flame and how the flame's working on these stoves and those sorts of things. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, let's see how things are looking here. Looking all right to you? They're pleasant.
Looking pretty daggum good. Yeah, sure. Hey, you know what, boy? You look a lot better in the dark.
Well, thank you. I think. So I've got some stuff here. This is fire spray. Because we're working at my desk here, don't want to take no chances. This alcohol and stuff could get out of control, you know, and I just want to be prepared for that. Well, first let's talk about the canister stoves. With the canister stoves, you know, you go to Walmart or whatever and you buy this isobutane, and these are mixed to do better in cold than your typical propane. I've had trouble getting these started in the really, really cold conditions. And what you want to do, you don't want to sleep with these because you might get a leak and it might kill you in the middle of the night, you know. If you put your head up underneath your sleeping bag and you've got one of these isobutane fuel canisters or a propane canister or something, and you're keeping it in your sleeping bag so that it won't get too cold and then not work for you in the morning, you gotta be real careful about doing that. You don't want to do that. There might be a leak that you don't know about. You'll be breathing that in all night underneath your sleeping bag when it's cold, and you might not wake up. Or you might wake up in paradise is where you might wake up. So you don't want to sleep with these things, but when they get super, super cold, it's almost impossible to get these things started. You have to be really patient with them. And what I've got here is an Optimus burner, and it fits in its own little pocket here like this. And what's nice about it is that for these full-sized isobutane canisters, you see how the bottom of it is concaved. You see that? It's a deep concave in there in the bottom of the canister. And these Optimus wood burners or stove burners are meant to fit right in there, right in that space, just like this. And then it's got this little pulley at the top here that you just pull, and there you go. You've got one nice little compact thing. But let's take a look at this Optimus fuel burner. Fits in this little pocket here, just like that. And what I really like about these Optimus burners is that they're so compact, and they fold like this. Let me see if I can show that off. Okay, so it's like this. It's got this thing here that holds that up, and then that just folds over. You see, folds over, packs away real nice. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing going. There's your supports. The arm of this thing comes out like that. Okay, so this is the Optimus stove burner. Make sure that's turned off. One thing I don't like about these Optimus burners is that when you're putting them on the canister, it'll spray out gas. Make sure there's no open flame around here. It'll spray out gas, and it's really hits your fingers, and it freezes your fingers. All right, so just spin that on there. You see that? You hear that? Dadgum. Got a mouthful of isobutane. All right, so there we go. That's on there tight. I've got several different pots and pans and stuff. I wanted to also show you how well these things balance pots and pans on them. There's a 750 milliliter cup, and that holds that just fine and dandy. Nice balance on there. How about this little tiny titanium cup? Will I be able to cook on there all right? Yep, be able to cook on there just fine.
I like that little cup right there. That little cup looks like pickle size.
Well, it is kind of pickle size, now that you think about it. Yeah, that'd be just perfect for you.
You give that to me when the show's over.
Well, maybe I'll get you your own. How about that?
Yahoo! Woohoo! Yeah!
All right, glad to hear you're happy about that. All right, so that fits that just fine. How about the old BCB mug? Does it fit the BCB mug on there? Yeah. Plenty of stability for cooking with that BCB mug. How about something bigger, like a kettle? Let's get a kettle. Yeah, so even holds the kettle just fine. Plenty of balance, plenty of stability there to cook with your kettle. All right, let's light this thing up, see what the bloom looks like. All right, we're going to be talking about the bloom. The bloom is how the flames come out and cook and look and all that stuff, how much width they have. All right, so there's the Optimus. As you can see there, that's what you get. Now, one thing we need to talk about is that right now we're in my work studio. It's completely controlled. The environment is completely controlled. But another thing about the Optimus is that it's titanium, made out of titanium. So it should cool pretty quick. Anyway, back to the studio. We're in the studio. Things are nice and controlled in here, the environment. But when you're outdoors, when you're in the backcountry, when you're by the side of the road, when you're on your back porch, when you're in your backyard, that's not the case. And wind will come and it will be blowing this flame all over creation. The slightest movement of air will affect your flame and blow it all over the place, so that you don't really get a great cooking experience unless you've got some kind of windshield. And that's true for everything. It's true for these propane stoves. It's true for the pop can stoves. So just keep that in mind. And another thing, cold temperatures. You know, I go out year round. In fact, the colder months are my favorite months to go out. And what happens is the cold will affect your fuel and your ability to get the fire started, to get the flame going. What I was going to say earlier about these propane or this isobutane is even though you don't want to sleep with it, what you can do is on a really frigid morning, I'm talking down freezing or below, you can take these things, pack them inside your jacket, up close to your body, carry them around for a while under your arm, under your armpit, stuff like that, until that canister begins to heat up. Then get that out and light it. You should be able to get a fire going. But even with these, they say, I've heard from various sources, say that the pop can stoves, the alcohol, rubbing alcohol or using heat, is supposed to perform better in extreme cold. I've had problems with the rubbing alcohol in extreme cold. And elevation also. Got to keep that in mind. Elevation will change these things. So if you're at a higher elevation than you're used to, that will affect, and combined with the cold, that will affect how easily you can get fires going. I'm not talking just about campfires. I'm also talking about getting your alcohol lit, your rubbing alcohol. I've poured these into stoves, had a puddle like that in the stove, had flame directly against the alcohol. And the fumes, there's something about how the air becomes lighter or something with elevation and cold, that those fumes just did not want to light. I mean, I had the flame right into the puddle of rubbing alcohol, and it did not want to light. I eventually got it lit, but it took a good long time. So these are just things that you're going to have to deal with. Now, having said that, the same was true for the campfire that I was trying to use to keep me alive up in those mountains, because it was so daggum cold and I was at a higher elevation. You know, I would have liked to have had a bonfire there keeping me comfortable. I never did get a really hardy fire like that going. I got a fire and I managed to maintain it over the course of like a week, but I never did get it up, you know, super blazing or anything like that in those super cold conditions. So just some things to think about. Maybe when you're watching Bear Grylls and all these stupid made-up shows, these stupid fake shows, you're thinking, well, I can do that. I can just anywhere. I can just get a fire going, no problem, as long as I've got fire starting kit and stuff like that. Well, you might be able to, but remember that depending on the conditions, a lot more effort and time has to go into a fire. And you've got a finite amount of energy, finite amount of calories, finite amount of hands, finite amount of places your attention can be at one time. And it can quickly overwhelm you. So just because you've got a fire starting kit does not mean that things are going to live up to your imagination. You know, that's one thing I've learned over my many, many years of doing this. Things will not always live up to your imagination. So you might go out into certain conditions thinking, oh, I got this under control. But then there will be things that you have not factored in, like you're at a higher elevation. The difficulty of getting and breathing a fire into real life in intense cold at a higher elevation. It's a full-time job, and any full-time job is you're just burning through calories. I remember waking up one morning and I scarfed down a candy bar, and it was like I was eating in a 5-star restaurant. That candy bar, I just remember the energy it was like Popeye eating a can of spinach. I just felt the energy return to me. I didn't realize how worn down I was from just all of the work and effort. All right, let's see if this thing is cooled down. Yeah, it's cool enough now that I can take that off. All right, make sure that's turned off. This is gonna spray again. There's really no way to prevent that. Man, it stinks too. Whew. All right, so that is the Optimus burner. It's a pretty nice little burner, ain't it? Pleasant. Well, shoot, yeah, I want one of those, man, so I can distill some things and hey, let's not get you in trouble. Again, you mean? Right, let's not get you in trouble with the sheriff again. All right, so let's pack this thing away. Fold those up, folds down, that folds like that. The Optimus fits into its little pocket here, and then that just stores right up underneath the fuel canister, which is a pretty daggum nice design. And that just goes in here. All right, but we're going to keep using this fuel canister for a little bit longer. I wanted to show you a couple other types of burners. And you know what? Let me turn on some lights again. Something tells me I'm going to be turning on lights, turning off lights, turning on lights, turning off lights. So this little stove here is a generic one, and I used one of my daughter's little old socks from when she was a tiny little girl to keep a portion of that stove in there, just to keep it from banging around on everything else. The neck of that. And what I really like about this generic stove here is just how wide the bloom of this is. It has such a wonderful control on it, and it's also got this really wide footprint there. So you can set almost anything on there and get things cooking really nice. It goes together like this. Okay, it's nice and tight. Make sure that's closed off there. You can see that beautiful, nice, big, broad stove burner. And what I like about that is it creates a really nice, broad bloom. It's better for slow cooking. It's better for frying things in a fry pan. You get a more even burn on your skillet for something like that. In fact, I need to get a skillet out, don't I, so that I can show that off too. Daggum. Stuff goes everywhere. Let that dissipate a little bit. Let me get a skillet so we can show how a skillet does on this. All right, does the skillet sit nicely on top of there? Yes. In fact, the skillet sits more nicely on top of that than it would have with that Optimus stove burner I was just showing off to you. You see how nicely that sits on top of there? Stability. I like the stability out in the woods. You don't want to go knocking over your stove out in the middle of the woods and knocking things everywhere, or maybe blowing things up, causing a forest fire or anything like that. As soon as that gas dissipates a little bit, we're going to light this. I'm going to show you this much wider bloom that I like so much. Like I said, you can get these stoves off Amazon. This is a generic one. This is not a name brand burner. But it's really nice. Now there's some drawbacks. It doesn't have its own igniter. It comes in different parts, right? This is not just all one unit. This unscrews from the top here, so you got to carry more things. It's not all forever connected. Forever connected, kind of like you and me, buddy, right? Friends forever. That's right. Thank you, Pleasant, for pointing that out. Okay, I think that the gas is dissipated enough that we can light this. Let me turn off the lights again. You see that really broad bloom there. Now I got an air conditioner on. You can see the air conditioner effect in that flame. It's not going straight up. It's blowing around like that. Look at this. That is nice. You get a nice even burn around all that. All right, let's turn that off. Got a nice look at that. Got a nice look at how nice and wide that bloom is on that flame. All right, now this is going to take a while to cool down because that is stainless steel. All right, while that is cooling down, let's talk about these types of stoves. Let me turn the lights back on. These types of stoves are my least favorites. They're the most compact, and they're my least favorite. They're super compact. That's one of the bonuses to them. You can get them with their own starter. But the problem with these is that they're just a torch. And typically, the folks who rave about these types of burners are people who are not doing any kind of real cooking out in the woods. They just simply want a torch. They're heating up water is what they're doing. These things are simply for heating up water. I want you to look at something. Now imagine the torch coming out of that. Just like a single rocket flame. You're getting a hot spot right there in the middle of the skillet. And it takes a lot longer for all this to heat up. Even when all this around here heats up, the hottest part is still going to be right there in the dead center. Now you imagine trying to cook eggs with a torch like that. It ain't easy. I mean, you're really setting yourself up for failure with something like that. Something with a wider bloom like this, you see, gives you much more even cooking if you're doing some real cooking. Like if you really want to cook an egg and you don't want it to be burnt in the middle and raw around the edges. This is the kind of burner you want, not something like this. Now we're going to light this thing up as soon as my other generic burner there cools down and I can take it off the propane tank. We'll show you how this, I'll show you. Well, me and you, right, Pleasant?
Yeah, buddy, you ain't no lone wolf no more. You ain't flying solo. I'm with you now, buddy. I'm your co-pilot.
All right, co-pilot. Well, we're going to show you guys how these torches work here in a little bit. And the nice thing is they do have their own little igniter there. That's what this little thing is right here. Comes up over the burner. It just sends off a little spark once you get the gas going. Another thing is they don't have a really nice broad stand there, pot stand. All right, we didn't get any spray on that one. That's nice. All right, let's get this thing on there. Oh, I didn't have that thing turned off. Yeah, you want to make sure that you turn those nozzles off before you try connecting it to your canister. All right, let's take a look at that for a second. Does it fit our 750 pot? Yeah, it does. It holds it all right. How about our tinier cup? Yeah, it holds that all right. And for just heating up water, I reckon that's fine. How about our larger kettle? See, it just does not have the spread to hold that as securely as I would like. I think the others that I've showed off here do a much better job at that. And I just, this thing's empty, but if you imagine if that thing's full with a pound or two of water, what you get there, you don't get a lot of stability with these. All right, let's turn off the lights, light this up so you can see that this thing has no spread whatsoever. Basically, it's a rocket booster. Turn the gas on. It's just a rocket blast there, right in the center of whatever you're doing. And I don't like that intensity in one concentrated spot. So these are my least favorite types of stoves. They ain't worthless, but they're my least favorite. There are better options. Why would you go with a little jet rocket when there's so many other options like the two I just showed you? And they don't take up too much more space or weigh all that much more at all. Forgot to put the old BCB adventure mug on there. There you go. It does hold that pretty well. So, if you're just boiling water, what's the big deal? But I like for my gear to be versatile. I think anybody who's been watching this channel long enough knows that I like versatility in my gear. And a little tiny rocket doesn't give you a whole lot of versatility. It's good for heating up water. That's about it. And not a lot of control on that thing. There's one type of stove that's popular among certain groups of people that I'm not going to be showing off today. I don't like them. I think they're pointless. And that is these little like titanium foldable wood stoves. And basically what you do is you go find scraps of wood, twigs, and stuff like that. It's like a twig stove. And I see a lot of people out in Europe using these stoves where the idea of them sounds great. You go out, like if there's a burn ban or something like that, and you take one of these little foldable titanium stoves, you unfold them, and then you put it together, and basically you feed twigs into it and get those twigs lit and get that fire going, and then you cook on top of it. I don't like them. I think they're pointless. The same difficulties that you will have creating a campfire under certain conditions are the same difficulties that you will have creating a wood fire stove in one of those little titanium or stainless steel wood stoves out in the woods for cooking. 98% of the time, all of the cooking I do is on my campfire. It's just that from time to time, you don't want to put all the time and energy and effort into getting a campfire built. A campfire takes time. And what happens after that? We're talking about a big time investment and a big energy investment for something like a cup of coffee. These portable or backpacking or emergency stoves are great for saving you time, saving you energy. They don't draw a lot of attention. You can do it in the vestibule of your shelter. You can't do that with a campfire. If it's pouring rain outside, there's a thunderstorm, you can't go out and cook in that. These little portable emergency stoves or backpacking stoves allow you to do these little simple cooking right in the vestibule of your shelter. So that's nice. They don't draw any attention. Draw very little attention. But let's talk about some of the pros and cons of these pop can stoves. I want to show you my very favorite one. The whole idea of a pop can stove is to save space and weight. Simplicity. I really like the simplicity of these pop can stoves here. I've got a brand new design here. I've not tried this out yet. So we're going to try this out together today to see how well this thing works. I can tell you I'm not fond of it yet. Even though I haven't used it, I have analyzed the thing pretty closely. And I'm not too fond of it. What do you think about this highfalutin new pop can design there, Pleasant?
Looks like something come from another planet. Look at that, a little curly Q on the top of it. What is that?
Well, that's where the flame is supposed to come from. Fuel goes into this main part here, and then there's a little hole in this little curly Q, that, as you call it, little hole in there. And I guess that's where the fumes come out, and that's what you light. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And we'll talk about some of the pros and cons of these. One of the cons is that you still have to carry fuel. And anything in liquid form is going to be the heaviest thing in your pack. I'm talking comparatively. So if you're carrying this much liquid, and at the same time you're carrying this many jelly beans, this is going to be heavier than your jelly beans. Nothing is going to be heavier comparatively in a pack than anything that's in liquid form. That's why I used to carry these little water flavor things. It was like little drips. So you'd like drip into your water bottle, and then that would flavor your water. I stopped carrying those because I realized even though that's just a little tiny vial, liquid weight adds up in your pack. So imagine you're carrying the little water flavoring, you're carrying fuel, you're carrying your water, you're carrying your booze. All this liquid begins to add up as far as weight goes. Anything you can get in powder form, you're saving yourself on weight. So anyway, what was I talking about?
I don't know, man. You just go off sometimes. You go off and on and on and on, talking like to yourself.
Well, yeah, but it's because I'm juggling a lot of things that I don't want to forget and leave out of this show. It's not scripted,
Oh, well, excuse me. I'm just trying to be helpful. Goodness gracious, man. What do you got up your...
Hey. This is a kid-friendly show.
Oh, all right. Sorry about that. I was just going to say, what do you got up your ear?
Yeah, I bet you were.
They'll never know the difference, will they?
Let's look at some of these pop can stoves. Something you're always going to need with a pop can stove is a windshield. You're always going to need a windshield. Some folks might use like their mattress or whatever, or their backpack to try to create a windshield. I want the windshield already built into my system. I don't want to be out there trying to figure out what's going to block wind. You will need to block the wind. As soon as this flame blooms, the wind starts carrying it away. It'll blow it right out. So you can't just look at this. You say, wow, that's amazing. Look how small and compact that thing is. Yeah, it's wonderful. But you can't just use it by itself in most cases. You still need a windshield, a wind break, or a wind block. So that's where these sorts of things come in. Here's a good example of a wind break. Let's see. Slight windbreak. See how this just fits right into there like that? Now, this is blocking the wind just enough. You see, when you get your flame there now, this is blocking the wind just enough to give your flame plenty of protection to do its thing. This is probably the most popular alcohol stove right now. Let me tell you something about these styles of alcohol stoves. You don't want to transport your alcohol in there. This is a mistake that I made. I filled that thing up with alcohol, screwed the cap on there and said, oh, that'll do. That'll do. I can just carry it like that. No, you don't want to. That alcohol starts to eat away at your seals. I'm talking about like this rubber seal on the inside there that keeps all your alcohol from splashing out into your pack. The alcohol will begin to deteriorate that. Also, if you've got any kind of glue or seal inside keeping this thing together, it'll start to eat away at that glue and stuff. You've just left the alcohol in that, and a month or so goes by, it starts to compromise all the seals, and so you'll get alcohol just pours right out into your pack. So that's why you don't want to carry the alcohol in this. You just want to put the alcohol in when it's time to use it. When you finish, pour the alcohol back into your container, whatever you're carrying it in. As long as you do that, these things should work just fine. Another thing is, you're going to need that windshield, that wind protector. So some kind of wind protector. This is a really good one. It's made out of aluminum. It's almost perfect, this design. But I'm going to tell you what I don't like about this setup right here. Let's look at our big pot. Will the big pot work on there? Not very well. You see that? I have a hard time balancing the BCB Crusader cup on there. It'll do it, but I like stability. I don't like to be dickering around with these things when I'm tired and I'm hungry and I'm out in the elements. How about this bigger 75 or 750? It fits in there not like it's supposed to. It doesn't fit on top, but it kind of nestles in there. That'll work, but look at it. No stability. How about my smaller cup? Definitely no, can't use it. So this, if you take this, it's going to definitely affect the pot or the cooking cup that then you're able to take, right? How about the skillet? It works just fine with the skillet. So that works just fine, but it's not my favorite setup. It gives you fewer options rather than more options. So it's good. It ain't great though. Let's pour some alcohol in there, ladies and gentlemen, and light this thing up and see what the bloom looks like. How's that sound to you? How's that sound to you? Pleasant. I'm sitting over here chewing my fingernails. Just get on with it. Since when do you have fingernails? Oh. Figure of speech. All right, this is a brand new bottle of alcohol. I buy these bottles of rubbing alcohol, 91%, and I keep them in stock. If there's one thing that the pandemic taught me, it's don't wait to stock up on these sorts of things. And speaking of versatility, things being versatile, good for wounds, good for fuel. You can't say that about the heat. You can't use heat, H-E-E-T, to clean wounds and stuff. But you can use rubbing alcohol to clean wounds. The alcohol serves many more purposes, is more versatile. It's what I like about using the rubbing alcohol. By the way, if you want to talk about versatility, I did have the idea of, using these pop can stoves, why don't I just take like a really high proof whiskey, like a 150 proof rum, something like that. I can drink the rum, I can use it to clean wounds, and I can use it for fuel. Brilliant idea, right there, Pleasant? Oh my goodness, I think that's the most genius thing I've ever heard in my whole life. Oh, I'm gonna cry, I'm so happy. Did you do it? Did you do it? Well, I did it, yeah, but it didn't work out too good because the alcohol at that proofage is just so intense. It's not enjoyable. When you're sitting around a campfire, and to thin that out, the only thing you got is like creek water. Usually at home you'd mix that kind of rum with a Coke or something like that. Well, nobody's carrying Coke 30 miles out in the backcountry. So then I thought, well, how about like water flavoring? Like if I find like cola water flavoring, no, that flat water flavoring does not do the same thing as like putting rum into a glass with ice and carbonated Coca-Cola and having it that way. So it just wasn't the same. It didn't work. You all are free to try it, but I'm telling you right now, it didn't work for me. All right, let's light this up, turn the lights off, light this up. We'll see how this thing blooms. Now the alcohol is in the middle of this. I just put a little puddle of rubbing alcohol there in the middle. And with the air conditioning blowing this way, we'll see if that affects the flame. There we go. It's lit. It is affecting the flame. See, even just the air from my air conditioner, I have to block that. Now, as this thing heats up, what it should do is it should bloom out these little holes that are around the side here. Just like a stovetop at home would do. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? They're pleasant. Oh my goodness, look at that. You're going to burn the whole house down. No, I hope I'm not going to. Going pretty good. As this thing heats up, then it'll start to, there we go. It's trying to do it. It's trying to do it.
Oh, look at that. Oh my goodness, it's so hot. Keep it away from your microphone there, boy.
Yeah, thanks for the heads up on that. It's trying. Hope that's showing up on the camera how it's trying to bloom around the edges. There we go. Now we got a stovetop. So you got a nice flowered bloom like that. So you get nice broad cooking. That's good, right? You don't burn the center of your pan, but you get like a nice stovetop effect there. And that's basically how that works. Any wind here, I'm going to take this pot away here, or this fry pan, and show you how the air conditioner blows that. This is just my air conditioner, which is like 30 feet away. But watch what it does to this flame. See how, now that's what's going to happen when you're trying to cook outdoors. And it'll take a long time for you to be able to heat up water or anything like that if you've got that wind influence in the flame like that. What you want is the flame to be going straight up, that heat to be going straight up, so that you can get the most efficient burn and the most efficient stove top. So any kind of influence, this is very mild. If you're outdoors, even on what seems like a calm day, you don't understand how much movement there is in the air and stuff. And you see, it's taking away the heat, changing the direction of the flame, and that affects, of course, how efficient your fire is. All right, let's put this out. Let that cool down. Let me turn on some lights. We'll talk about the next one. Actually, we're gonna test out this new fangled type of pop can stove and see how it works. That's still pretty warm. Yeah, that's really warm. Let's move that out of the way over here. Wow, I got my table nice and hot there. I didn't realize that heated up from the bottom, but it does. So maybe I should get something so that I don't burn up my table. All right, I think this will work. Another thing I'd like to point out about the advantages to carrying rubbing alcohol over the advantage of carrying a fuel canister. I'm thinking not only about backpacking or going out on excursions in the backcountry. Not just that, but something else you got to consider. Emergency bags, bug out bags, go bags. What would you feel more comfortable with storing in a go bag or a bug out bag? A fuel canister or rubbing alcohol? Say that bag's got to sit in a hot car for half a day or most of the day, or it's got to sit out in the sun. Which would you feel more comfortable with, the fuel canister or the rubbing alcohol? Well, I don't know about you. I feel much better about the rubbing alcohol. I feel like there's fewer opportunities for accidents. I feel like there's fewer opportunities for explosions, fewer opportunities for dying, being poisoned by the stuff. Rubbing alcohol, you can clean cuts and abrasions and stuff like that with it. You can clean gear with it, and you can't do that with the fuel canister. In storage, I much more trust the rubbing alcohol more than I trust any canister. Which do you think would be easier to get in an emergency or natural disaster or any of these things? You think it's going to be easier to get a fuel canister, or you think it's going to be easier to get rubbing alcohol? Which is cheaper? The rubbing alcohol is cheaper, there's no question about it. Although the fuel canister is not ridiculously expensive. What I typically do is anytime I go to Walmart, if I've got $5 or $6 extra dollars, just bouncing around in my pocket, I might pick up an extra one of these. So I keep the fuel canisters, I keep them in stock here. I keep plenty of this rubbing alcohol in stock. But I think when it comes down to it, the rubbing alcohol, it just has more, it's more versatile, easier to get, costs less. So really you can't beat the rubbing alcohol, I don't think. Now you can get rubbing alcohol in different strengths. I like to get it as strong as I can. So 91%.
It's good for acne too. You tell them that.
Did I tell them what?
The rubbing alcohol is good for acne.
Acne?
Zits, man, zits. Like, pimples and stuff like that. I use it on my back. I get pimples all over my back.
Ew.
Hey, ew yourself.
Too much information. We don't need to know that.
Hey, man, are you the Practical Woodsman or what?
Yes, I am the Practical Woodsman.
Well, I'm trying to tell everybody what it can practically be used for, Mr. Practicalitow.
Mr. Practicalitow? You mean Mr. Practical?
That's what I said, Practicalicow.
No, you said Practicalicow.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's practical. I'm the Practical Woodsman.
Okay, Mr. Practicalicow, whoop-de-doo.
Now you're just having fun.
I know. Look, you got a smile on your face. I'm making you laugh.
Well, you are comical. All right, let's get back to these little pop can stoves here. Got a couple more, shall we? I want to try this one. I've never tried this before. So let's give it a try. It's got this little nut here that you twist off, just like that. Has a little silicone ring there on it. It keeps things from slipping out. Little tiny hole there that you got to get the fuel in. I'm not too fond of that. In fact, they sent me a special bottle just so I could get the fuel in there. I don't like that. It needs a more practical opening. Well, let's see if we can get alcohol in there. All right, just putting the alcohol in. Can't tell. See, you can't look in there and see. I don't like that too much. I don't like not being able to see how much I've got in there. Yeah, so this thing's already losing points with me. Okay, got lots of alcohol in there now. Dripping all over the place. Clean that up. Another thing is, how am I going to turn this off? Well, the only way I'm going to be able to turn that off, here's what we're going to do, is if I can get something over top of that and starve it of oxygen. All right, so we got that in there. Let's put this piece here back on. Like I think I told you, there's a little hole right there on that little curlicue thing.
Curlicue. See, you stole. You're using my vocabulary.
Yeah, well, it's a good way of describing what that is. It's curlicue. All right, so you can see that. I hope that there is a little hole right there, right in the bottom of that curlicue, and I reckon that's where the fumes come up out of. We're going to drip some here on this curlicue, and we light it. See what happens. Let me see. I need to get something where I can. Will this work? That'll work. Just something that we can starve the oxygen out of that thing to turn it off. All right, so now what we do is we drip some of this on here. We light this. Turn off the lights. There we go. So that's what the thing looks like. What do you think about that, Pleasant?
Otherworldly, my friend. Otherworldly. Look at that. It's got that little curlicue. Got like a little flame above it. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's different, ain't it? Let me show you what come with this. This come with it. This is so that you can cook over top that newfangled pop can stove. And yeah, that works. But you've got no wind protector around this thing. So it still needs some kind of wind protector. I'm not a huge fan of it. It just creates some problems. I mean, it's burning nice. It's burning real nice. But you're kind of getting like that rocket effect, like that rocket booster effect, where you're just getting like a torch. So you've got no flame spread. Not crazy about that. If I take this away, look, out in the environment, that flame's going to be blowing all over creation, just like it was before I brought this over. This wind block. See, that's what you're going to get out in the woods. And if you're out in volatile conditions, you forget it. That flame's going to be all over the place. And so it's going to take a long time to cook. It's going to be burning this side of the skillet, then it's going to be burning that side of the skillet, burning over here, burning over there. Heat's going all over the place. So really, this is not enough right here. Give you guys a nice look at that. That's what these newfangled pop can stoves look like. I wonder what the advantages of that design is. What did they have in mind? I mean, how is that any better than the pop can stove we've already looked at? Turn that off. Turn the lights on.
And I'll go get it. I'll go turn the light on.
Oh, will you get that for me, Pleasant?
Sure. Yeah, I got her.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. See how hot this is. It's not too hot. Yeah, it took care of it, didn't it? Killed that flame. I have these like wind breaks here. See, but I want to show you something. I mean, the flame was that high. This works. Crusader cup works with it, but my smaller cup did not work with it. No, this doesn't work. See, can't use that. Kettle works just fine with that. That's a perfect windbreak because you got where you can light it in here. You got plenty of ways for oxygen to get in there even when this thing is burning. This is a perfect windbreak. It's just too wide for a lot of the stuff that I'd be doing. And this doesn't work. See, that doesn't work with it. So just some things to think about. How about this one here? It stands above the pot stand. So that doesn't work with anything. So you'd need a windbreak like this, and then that creates its own problems. So that brings us to the British BCB cup Crusader mug cook stand. This thing is a work of perfection.
A work of perfection, man. You talking about me again?
No, I'm talking about this pop can stove setup here that the British come up with. Let me show this thing off. It's solid stainless steel. It's heavier than, say, this aluminum thing. It's definitely heavier. Thing could take a nuclear blast, but look at it. It's perfection. It's just a little tray there. It's got a little tray there in the middle. And it's just perfection. I think that this is technically, it's designed to work with those little tablets, like little white tablets. You put the tablets in there and light those, and they burn there in the center of that little tray in the bottom. I think that's what that design is for. But what I use it with, one of the very first pop can stoves I ever bought, this little titanium pop can stove right here. Check that out. That thing is perfection. Now, there are some drawbacks. There's no way to turn that off easily. And another thing is that once you put the alcohol in there, you got to burn the alcohol. Whatever alcohol you've put in there, you got to burn it all up. There's no way to pour that out back into a bottle. But as far as compactness, weight, it weighs like styrofoam. It's titanium. Pop can stove design. Little hole in the center there is where the fuel goes, and then it blooms out here so you get a nice wide bloom. And we'll go down to this camera here. You can see it fits just right in that little BCB British cook set that it's hard to find, but it comes with the Crusader cup. If you get the whole kit, it comes with the Crusader cup and the bottle. The Crusader cup, of course, the BCB mug nestles right into that. This thing goes back and forth like this. It's perfect. You can get your little pop can stove down in there. Fold this over. The beauty of this setup here is that it works with absolutely everything. So you can use this with those little lightable tablets if you'd like. I don't use those things. But you can also use it with a little titanium pop can stove. And this thing you originally come with, it had some titanium things on the side for pot holder. So it was like that. And then it had these folding feet that come out. And I clipped those off as soon as I got it. So I clipped all those off, and now all I've got is this. Fits just perfect in there. This is the perfect wind protector, but at the same time, it allows plenty of oxygen to get in there for that flame. This design here, where this thing folds over, means that you can use this with anything. 750 milliliter cup fits just right. See that? Fits just right. How about my smaller cup? Fits just right. How about the Crusader cup? I mean, it's made for it. So yeah, it fits just right. How about the kettle? Fits just right. Look at that. The thing is perfection. And what I want to do is when we light this thing up and put the fuel in it and everything, I want to do it in this so that you can see just how well this setup here works. And you really do get a nice bloom with this, a nice widespread bloom for skillet cooking. You know, forgot to check with that skillet fill in there. Look at that. Thing of beauty. Thing of beauty. Skillets work on there, pots work on there, everything works on there. Everything. But what it's got to do is got to heat up, and as it heats up, then it'll start to bloom out of these little holes, and then what you end up with is exactly like a stovetop at home, like a gas stovetop. What's taking so long? Dadgum, I got other things to do today. Will you be patient? It's working. It's working its way. It'll do it. I want to go watch Dukes of Hazzard after this. You want to watch Dukes of Hazzard with me? Dukes of Hazzard, well, we could watch that. I was thinking Andy Griffith. You want to watch the old Andy Griffith show? Oh, I reckon. I want to see the episode Keeper of the Flame. Keeper of the Flame. Which one's that? Is that where Opie accidentally burns the guy's barn down? Well, it wasn't Opie doing it. It was the old man, because he was a moonshiner. That's why it's my favorite episode. Yeah, that moonshiner. Oh, that's one where Barney takes a scoop of water out of that bucket and drinks it, and it's all moonshine, right? Yeah, my favorite scene in the whole universe. Barney Fife, your favorite character in TV? And I reckon it'd either be him or Uncle Jesse from Dukes of Hazzard. Yeah, he's good. Or Rod Sterling. Oh, from Twilight Zone. Yeah, that's right. You know who my favorite character in Dukes of Hazzard is? Who? Daisy Duke's Britches, that's who. Who? That ain't no character. Come on. I know who your favorite characters are. Who? Dollar Tree, Bo, and Luke. What was their names? Coy and Vance. That's who your favorites are. Loser. It's not my favorite. No, I don't even like them. Dollar Tree, Bo, and Luke. Coy and Vance. That was a whole big thing, you know. They tried to cheat the Bo and Luke from what they deserved. That didn't go over too good. Fans didn't like that. All right, so there we go. There we've got a stovetop flame. There you go. Perfect. So I hope you have given you some ideas about these pop can stoves, different types of stoves you can put in your bug out bags. The little holder that come with this, you notice that the legs don't fold or anything. It's not a great design. This is not a great design because you cannot pack that thing easily. It doesn't weigh a whole lot, but you just cannot pack it easily. Those legs need to be able to fold. It needs to be able to go compact if this is going to make any sense whatsoever. And besides that, there should be some kind of windbreak built into that, designed into that. You're always going to need a windbreak if you're going to want to have the most efficient experience out there. As far as these stoves go, they're not terrible. They're great little stoves, but you want to make sure you pour that alcohol out of there. Put the cap back on that. So that's not a terrible design. Works just fine in my BCB setup here. So that also will set right down in there. It's another option. But really, can't really beat that little titanium stove. Weighs nothing. But the thing is like I said, whatever alcohol you put in there, you got to burn it, because there's no way to pour this out and get it back into a bottle. But as far as windbreaks go and stands, this BCB British design is it's awesome. It's really awesome and versatile. I love that. The weight is something I don't love, but beggars can't be choosers. Is there anything else I want to add to this show before we close down? Pleasant, can you think of anything? Just that I'm probably the most handsome pickle you've ever seen in your whole life. I mean, you could take a poll or something, but I mean, what's the point? Everybody probably agrees with that, wouldn't you say? That really wasn't what I had in mind, but I mean, what do you think, guys?
Most handsome pickle of all time. Pose for us.
Do. Look at me. I'm the most handsome pickle.
Well, we'll see what people say in the comments. Yeah. Great for bug out bags. Rubbing alcohol. Great for bug out bags. You can use it. Clean yourself, clean cuts, clean gear, sterilize things, and use it for fuel with your little handy dandy pop can stove. All right, folks. He's allergic to endings of the Practical Woodsman show. You see that? He can't handle it. He can't handle that the show is ending. He's allergic. All right. Y'all take care. See you in the next episode. Gesundheit.